Hey, this is Sean, the What's Up Dude. We are here at the Beller Museum. They have a ton of cool cars, and it's in Romeoville, Illinois, and we're gonna check it out and have some fun. This is Sean, the What's Up Dude.
Because all of this stuff belongs to one guy, Dr. Jordan Beller. He's a retired eye doctor. He turned 85 2 days ago. He first started collecting cars when he was 14. The first car he ever bought was a 32 Ford Roadster, which he took home and hot rodded. We still have that car. We have the car that he bought in 1954. This is by no means all the cars he's ever owned. It's just the ones that he decided to make his museum out of. Primarily, we collect Model A Fords, which is 28 through 31 Fords. And then Model Bs, 32s. He likes 32s. And then lots of other hodgepodge things for various reasons. Like this was his late wife's Rolls Royce. She liked him playing around with old cars, just not his junky old Fords. So she decided to buy herself something nice. In the 60s, he was quite the hot rodder, so he was really into Caddy V8s. So that big blue 51 back there is a Caddy with a 3 deuces and a 3-speed. The significance of being a 3-speed is by then you could not buy a manual transmission in a full-size Cadillac. But you could if you bought a hearse or an ambulance or what they call commercial cars. So he took the driveline out of a hearse to build his hot rod driveline because he wanted to shift. The roller was built by the Elgin Roller Company in Elgin, Illinois, somewhere around 1930. And it is a manufactured piece, but the engine and radiator and the hood and everything is from a Model A Ford. So they were buying their parts from Ford to build their tractors. This is also a perfect example of the way he likes his cars to look. My brother Tim, who's walking around down there, and I spend our full time working on making his piles of parts into drivable cars. But he doesn't want us to change the way they look. He likes the patina. He likes the stories that all of this wear shows, because what he says is if you restore a car, you put it back just the way it came off the assembly line if you're doing a good job. The trouble is, on the day it came off the assembly line, it had no history. Now all these cars have 90 years of history. He come in and said, Grandpa can't drive his truck anymore. Would you be interested? So we went and looked at it, and he said, this looks exactly like a truck that used to pick me up for day camp when I was a little kid. So people needed some way to move stuff around, so they made these little light trailers to go behind 30s cars. And then later in the 30s, cars started to have trunks on them, so they lost their market. But there's still guys out here collecting them. There's actually a Mullins Red Cap Club where you can, and they bring a lot of money when they're in real nice shape. This one is not in real nice shape. That's the way Jordan likes things. The yellow Mustang back there is a 66 Mustang convertible. That was his daughter's high school car. He said he bought it from a police auction. He got it real right. He only paid $125 for it. But then he took it to his buddy's body shop, and $10,000 later he gave it to his daughter. So it's actually good to read that. But that was back in the 80s. No, this one has trouble with the door. This was a painter's truck out of Waukegan, Illinois. Already had the ladder rack on it and stuff. It was sitting since 1960. It has 59 license plates on it, and when we took all the crap out of the back, because there's always a lot of crap in the back, it was all wrapped in 1960 newspapers. So it's just been sitting for a long time. This one has a pretty neat story. This is a 29 open cab pickup. They're called open cabs as opposed to roadsters because the soft top did not fold. It had a removable soft top, but it didn't fold up like a convertible top like the roadsters do. So they're called open cab pickups. In 1929, Mr. Jacoby bought this truck brand new in a little town in Massachusetts where he was a dairy farmer. He used this truck on his dairy farm, first as his regular driving vehicle and then later on just around the farm, but he used it until he died. And it was parked in the garage alongside the house where he had always parked it. And it sat there for many years, and that's when the top deteriorated and stuff. And the family decided they should probably do something with it rather than just let it sit there and go away. So they contacted a local historical society museum in Massachusetts, and they offered it to him. They said, we have this local car, it was bought here, it's always been driven here, would you like to come and see it and see if you want it in your museum? So they came and looked at it and said, oh, absolutely, we'd like to have this in our museum. And the family said, there's just one thing. No one has ever driven this car besides Mr. Jacoby. He would not allow anybody to drive it when he first bought it, and for the whole rest of his life, stay out of the old man's truck. So nobody's ever driven this car besides him. And the museum people said, okay, that's easy. We won't make it run. That way nobody can drive it besides Mr. Jacoby. It's been through 2 other collectors, including Jordan Beller, and everybody has made that same commitment. Don't make this one run because Mr. Jacoby wants to be the only guy to ever drive it. So, start life as a pickup. During World War II, they were rationing gasoline, but they gave better gas rations to cars than to trucks. To trucks than to cars. So this was converted into a truck during the war just to get the gas rations, just working the system. But the guy did such a nice job of the conversion. If you look, he actually blended the fenders back into the truck body and stuff like that. So Jordan likes this one a lot. And this is another one of our drivers. Also, when he got it, it needed to have the seat redone, but he did it in mattress ticking because he said it was a wartime car. You wouldn't be able to buy upholstery anyplace. Why not just use what you could find in the time? So he used what they call mattress ticking, mattress cover.
And most of these are Fords?
Yeah, Model A Fords is primary. The green one back there is a Wisconsin Bell Telephone Company truck. That was just a regular repairman's truck. If he came to your house to fix your phone, he'd been driving something like that in the 30s and 40s. The red and white one is a mail truck. That wooden body was proprietary to the U.S. Postal Service. They designed those bodies and had outside body companies build them, and then they would buy the chassis from Ford with just the hood and fenders on them and no body at all. And then they would buy that from a local dealer and send it to the local post office, and then the Postal Service would send them one of them wooden bodies, and they build it right there in the local garage. They're fairly rare because it was a short-lived situation. There's only about 500 of them in the beginning, and because they're made out of wood, a lot of them didn't last. So they're become more and more rare. That one was painted red and white for a movie set. On the other side, it says Fresh Fish. So it was just a prop in a movie. This four-door sedan is one of his few closed cars. He prefers open cars, so they have one nice closed car, and it's another one of his regular drivers. This one here was a recent donation to the museum. The guy that donated this car with a truck was 99 years old. He's part of Jordan's antique truck club, and he was here. They were doing their meeting, and he said, "This is the place where my Model A should end up." So he donated it to the museum, and that was in the middle of the summer. At 2 Novembers ago, they had his 100th birthday party here in the museum. Then last November, they had his 101st birthday party here in the museum, and he's here and enjoyed it. And he was just recently here, and I asked him if they were planning his 102nd birthday, and he said, "I don't know, nobody invited me yet." So, but he's still kicking, and he's about to be 102 years old.
Oh, wow.
32 was the first year for the Flathead V8. That was when the Flathead came out. Everybody was anticipating the Flathead coming out, and Henry was building it and developing it, but they weren't ready by the time they were supposed to start making cars in 1932. So he held off, and he said, "Just wait till I can put my V8s in them." They didn't build the first 32 Ford until March of 32. So March to December is a very short production year by car year standards. So consequently, the numbers were way down. So there wasn't a lot of 32 Fords. And the Roadster was among the more popular bodies. And the hot rodders glommed onto them right away, starting in 32. When the V8 came out, they could do all kinds of things with the V8. And in 2025, there are actually more 32 Ford Roadsters registered on the street than Henry Ford ever built, because they're so popular that there's lots of companies making reproduction pieces. So you could actually build a 32 Ford out of brand new parts, never having a 32 Ford. So that makes this one, because this is an original Henry Ford steel one, it makes this a very valuable car. This one here is the closest thing we have to a celebrity car. This was built for the guy who was Steve McQueen's stunt double. He was a stunt man, but he made a lot of money getting beat up instead of Steve McQueen, and because he was a stunt man, he was also a car guy. So he had a lot of cars in his collection, but Jordan, my guy, collects speed parts, stuff that came out in the era to make your cars go faster. So when this car was built for the guy, it was built by 2 guys, Wes Cooper and Kong Jackson, who were famous hot rodders in the 50s. And they built this car for him using a whole lot of speed parts. So normally this 4-cylinder is a flathead. This has an overhead valve conversion on it. It normally has an updraft carburetor. It now has a downdraft carburetor. It has all kinds of speed parts on it. Where a stock 32 Ford is about a 44 horsepower car, this one had about 100 horsepower. So that's not a lot by today's standards, but compared to 44, it was a lot. You can see that this is pretty rough. Jordan first saw this car when he was 12 years old and was sitting in a backyard in Chicago. And he could see it from an overpass that he used to ride his bicycle over. It was a railroad overpass. Excuse me. And at the age of 12, he decided he wanted a 32 Ford because he discovered hot rod magazines and stuff, so he wanted to build a 32. So I saw this down in the yard, and he went to try to buy it, and they said, oh, no, it's not for sale. We're going to fix it up. For the entire rest of his adult life, every few years, he would stop by and ask, and they would tell him the same thing, no, we're going to fix it up. In the 1990s, so that was 1954, 52, when he was 12 years old. In the 1990s, he was driving over that bridge in a modern car, and you couldn't see it if you were in driving over a car. You had to be standing on the sidewalk or riding your bicycle to see it down there. But he saw that at the other end of the block, they were tearing the houses down. So he drove down there right away and saw that the place where this was at the other end of the block, and it was still there, but they were obviously tearing all these houses down. So he went and found the contractor, and he said, hey, there's an old car in the backyard. And the guy said, yeah, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get it out of there. Jordan said, let me take care of that for you. So he went and got this car in the 1990s, but when he pulled it out, it was so badly deteriorated that there isn't much salvageable about it. But what he said was he had already started his museum in another building, and he said, I'm going to display this car just the way I pulled it out, just as a cautionary tale. This is what happens if you leave them sit outside. If you leave them sit, they're going to go back to nature. So if you have a car and it's outside and you really don't think you're going to do anything with it, let somebody have it. Let somebody who's going to play with it, because otherwise you're just going to lose it. So that's what happened here. This is an unrestored original car.
You said how many miles are on it?
29,000.
Oh, wow.
This is a original 32 Ford V8. It was a V8 car when it was new. Jordan decided to focus only on 1932 plates, and he only collects matched pairs. He's the only interested in them if he can have both the front and the rear plate. So the square in the middle is matched pairs from every state in the Union in 1932. And all the ones that are on the outside are matched pairs of Illinois 1932 plates. And the little spots in between them are what they call tax tags. If you went into town and paid your municipal tax in a little town in Illinois, they gave you a metal tag that you were supposed to put on your license plate. Those are from little towns all around Illinois, and they're all 1932 tax tags. So that's his collection. 1932, and by 1932, open cabs had become quite unpopular because it only cost about $50 more to buy a closed cab with roll-up windows. So consequently, the entire production was 237. So they only made 237 32 Ford open cab pickups. So that makes this an extremely rare truck, and we have 4 of them. The one with Mickey Mouse is one, that one's right there, and I have a body next door in the warehouse. This is a 1932 Ford school bus with a Wayne bus body, and it's built on a 34 Ford chassis, but most of the rest of it is modern hot rod. It has a 500 cubic inch Cadillac engine and a turbo 400 trans with a gear bender's overdrive and a Chevy 1-ton rear end. It's got 15-inch disc brakes on the front, has power steering and brakes, and air conditioning and power windows. That's okay. How would you guys like to go for a ride in the bus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody in the bus. Took slightly more than 20 years. I built the rolling chassis for this bus before I ever came to work for Jordan Beller in my own shop at home. I was working in a hot rod shop over in Plainfield. I've known Jordan for 50 years. He came in, asked about, he had this bus body, or he had a bus body, and he was thinking about building a hot rod bus. We talked to the hot rod shop about building it, and they said it was too big, too physically large. They didn't want to take up all that space in their shop. So I told them I could build a chassis for him at home, because that's what I was doing at the hot rod shop. And I did. And while I was in the middle of this project, the guy that was working for him retired, and I offered to come to work for him, and he agreed. So I came to work here, and then eventually we finished the bus. I'm not a body guy. So I was doing all kinds of mechanical, and I was getting ready to make this into a bus, but when I got as far as making it pretty, I was not capable. My little brother Tim, who we just met, is a body guy. So he came to work with us about 10 years ago, and together we built this bus. We just finished it last year. I started in about 2002. Very nice. But with all the modern stuff in it, we can run this one on the highway. We've got power windows. Yeah, it has 11 power windows. But I put this big Cadillac V8 in there, and Jordan did not want to blister the hood. He wanted a stock hood. So I just kept moving the motor back to get it to where it was inside of the hood. And that ended up making me have to make this dog house and everything here. Normally in a 32 Ford, my feet would be down underneath there, but because it was a bus, I didn't care about all that. I could do whatever I want. That's how we ended up.
Hey guys, it's Mickey Mouse. I'm here too. Just want to say hello, and I'm sitting in this cool car.
31 Ford service car. A service car is a fancy name for a tow truck. In the 30s, lots of Ford dealerships had tow trucks for their dealerships, but generally they were just a cab with an open frame and a boom on the back. Henry decided that that wasn't attractive enough to be working for his dealerships. So he created a service car body and encouraged his guys to buy them, although he didn't provide them. So it was in the middle of the Depression, so they didn't sell very many of them. So in modern times, when they didn't sell very many in early times, they became rare. So Jordan wanted one for his collection because he's aware of service cars, but we couldn't find any. There is a little town in Sharon, Wisconsin, a little town called Sharon, Wisconsin, that has an annual Model A Day. And with their Model A Day, they have a swap meet. And in the swap meet was this service car. I don't know how the glare is for you, but this is the way we found it. It was in serious need of repair. Most guys walked by it and said, never mind, it's too far gone. Jordan wanted a service car, so he brings this home and says, okay, we're gonna build this truck. So just like I said before, we wanna make it serviceable, but we don't wanna change how it looks. All of these words and everything were on the side of the truck, but you could just barely see them. Mm-hmm. So because of that information, we were able to start looking for background on this truck. Jordan always likes to find the stories of the vehicles. So it says it's from Heartland, Wisconsin, which is not too far north of Sharon, Wisconsin. So he's on the Heartland, Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce website, just looking for historical information. And he comes across a video, and he clicks on the video. In 1938, the city of Heartland, Wisconsin commissioned a movie of all the downtown businesses in Heartland. And it's just a guy operating a camera like this, because every once in a while you can see him in the reflection of the store windows. But he stops by the barber shop, and then the hardware store, and then the butcher shop. And each time the proprietor walks out and waves at the camera and goes back inside, and go by the dress shop, and two ladies come out and spin around in dresses, and they go back inside. As he progresses into town, he comes across the Hornberg Motor Company. Hornberg Motor Company is a Ford dealership. Now, it's a big building, two-story building, got glass in the front, like a showroom, and gas pumps out in front. Because it's such a big building, he's across the street filming this panning across the Hornberg Motor Company. As he's panning, this truck with a 35 Ford on the hook drives through the frame and drives inside the building. We actually have movies of this truck working in 1938. Wow. We also know how it got to be this color. We have some very early pictures of it. That was a green truck with black fenders. You can't tell that from the pictures because they're black and white, but we know that all Model A Fords came with black fenders, and when we open up the hood and stuff, you can find places where the firewall's still green and things like that. In 1935, Henry Ford did a major development in the flathead Ford. He was promoting that, and a guy named Harry Miller was a IndyCar builder, and a guy named Preston Tucker, who you know from the Tucker automobiles, was a promoter. And he and Harry Miller came to Henry Ford and convinced him to sponsor some Indy cars using his new V8 engine. Henry embraced that idea. So they started building the cars, and they designed a really neat red and white paint scheme. So because Henry was such a promoter type himself, he just put together a package where if you had a Ford dealership, if you agreed to paint your vehicles in that red and white paint scheme, he would send you the materials. He would pay for the materials to do it. So this truck was painted red and white in 1935 because of that program. When we started playing with this truck, when we first got it back here, you saw how bad the condition of the back of it was. This is a regular cab, and the body is an overlay. You can see it's screwed on there. I was concerned, based on the condition of the back there, that if I unbolted this, it would just collapse, it would fall apart. So before I took it apart, I built cribbing across these handrails to hold everything in the position that it was before I unbolted it. Then when I unbolted it, the cab collapsed. It went that way. I said, okay, that wasn't what I meant to do at all, but that's what happens, because it was all rotten here and it was all rotten down there. But so we fixed all that, and when we're taking the back apart, it was lined in wood. Well, this piece of wood is from that picture. This is an original piece of wood. Jordan took this, if you see, it's millwork. It has a groove and a tongue and millwork lines on the back. He took this piece of wood to a millwork company and said, reproduce this in 10-foot long lengths so I can build the inside of my truck. So they did, and he brought it back here, and we built it the same way that we took it apart, using the same brackets and things. We got it done, and it looked great. It all fit in there just fine, but it all looked like brand new wood. So he's like, nope, that don't cut it. So he personally came here with gray stain and white stains and seal wool and all kinds of stuff. Spent about a month crawling around in the back of this truck, weathering the wood that's inside of it, trying to make it look like this. And if you look, he did a really good job. It looks just like this. When we If you did too many in one day, you'd be tired when you went home.
You be kidding.
This tow truck looks like tomato.
His big deal back then is he was really into Cadillac motors. That's what was in that hot rod, was a Cadillac V8. So he started collecting intake manifolds because when he was drag racing, he was playing around with various carburation, and because he's a collector, he just kept looking for all of them that he could find. And all the stuff on the walls is for 4-cylinders in the 30s, actually starting in 27, 28. So those are just various aftermarket speed parts that you could buy.
This is a little racetrack.
Yeah, this is a slot track. I didn't realize you already had it on, Tim. I didn't want to mess. Oh, now we're both in the same lane.